May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, today we have a wonderfully vivid story, another vivid story. These kinds of stories that we see in John, they just give us so much detail. There's a lot to work with. Last week we had the very detailed story of the woman at the well, a woman, an outsider whom Jesus had no problem engaging with as a Jewish man. She turned out to be an effective witness to good news, the good news that Jesus was the Messiah. And she was able to proclaim this to a whole population of people who would never have heard the message regardless. Jesus didn't see in our story last week an untouchable Samaritan woman that his culture of the day would have told him so. No, he saw a person, he saw a human being. Today we have more of the same, but in a very different context. We have another untouchable. So here's a very quick recap. Jesus encounters a blind man since birth. Now, this man never asks Jesus for help, yet Jesus mashes together dirt and saliva. He makes mud, he puts it on the man's eyes, he tells him to wash. The blind man's sight is restored. Jesus then seems to disappear. The man is left alone to defend his newfound transformation to his doubting and scared family members, neighbors, and the religious authorities. He is questioned and prodded for answers as to how he can now see and as to the identity of Jesus. And he isn't able to answer to their satisfaction, no matter how many times they ask. And this blessing of sight seems to now be in his detriment because, as the gospel says, they drove him out. And we know that in a desert community, to be put out, to be cast out of community is a death sentence. So I can imagine this man thinking, why did this happen to me? It's great that Jesus came up to me and tapped me on the shoulder and healed me and changed me without me even asking. But now, how do I survive in this world with this new vision I'm not used to? But Jesus didn't really go away. He didn't go anywhere. He hears all this, and he returns to the blind man, asks him if he believes. The man, who obviously had an experience that he cannot explain, says, "Yes, of course, I believe you are the Son of Man." And the religious authorities who doubt are then told by Jesus that they are now the ones who will be blind because they do not believe. The tables are turned, and it is they, the Pharisees, who will be cast out in the end because of their lack of vision. The religious authorities are so caught up in the logistics of how the blind man has been healed and whether or not it fits into the authority of the narratives that they have been used to, that they cannot see the signs pointing to a different truth. They can't celebrate the miracle. They are concerned not with the miracle itself, but by whose authority Jesus is doing the healing. Is it from God? Is it from their God? Is it from their God, the God of Moses? How can this be? Jesus does not fit into their understanding of the world and of their religious beliefs. It's so very difficult to change our worldviews. We saw that struggle with Nicodemus a few weeks ago, especially when the narratives of our lives change unexpectedly. The death of a loved one, a separation from a spouse, illness, job insecurity, the current events of our day. We may become angry and fearful This is not the way it was supposed to be. Why would God pull the rug out from under us like that? And these are very natural responses, but it's during these times that we can so easily become blind to God's grace and promise of abundance and renewal that is all around us. We hold on tightly to the narratives we've told ourselves about our lives and the lives of those around us, the world around us, because it is what we know and it is what we can understand. But the signs in the Gospel of John that Jesus performs, water into wine, he feeds the 5,000, he heals this blind man from birth. Of course, we will have the resurrection. All of these actions defy our mortal reason. And maybe we should not worry about the sign itself, but concentrate more on what that sign points to. Encounter with Jesus and the promise of grace and transformation in this encounter. So, this is a really odd thing that Jesus does. We know that Jesus heals all throughout the different gospel stories. People touch his garment, they're healed. He lays hands on people, they are healed. Sometimes he just says a few words and people are healed. So why does Jesus take up some dirt and mix it with saliva and make mud and paste it on this blind man's eyes? Why didn't he just put his hands on the man's shoulder and say, "Brother, you are healed"? That would have been a lot less messy. Why did Jesus get his hands so dirty? But Jesus is making a point, and again, showing us a sign toward something bigger, showing us who God is and pointing us in that direction. So let's look at the blind man for a second. This blind man, since birth, obviously he's been a beggar. He's been begging, he's been asking for alms. He's probably kind of on the outskirts of town, maybe hiding in a portico or something, or maybe not. Probably in the dirt half the time, sitting on the ground with his hand out like that, and people walking by, maybe spitting on him because, he's been blind since birth. What did his parents do to make him that way? They must have done something. They're cursed. This man is cursed. I spit on you, right? When it rains, the dirt turns into mud, and he's probably sitting in the mud. When someone spits on someone, what does that action usually conjure up? Well, the action shames the other person, for one. It speaks of disgust of one toward another. I spit on you. What kind of animal rolls around in the mud? Swine, pigs, the most unclean animal in the world that Jesus was living in. And to be blind in this world 2,000 years ago, to be disabled in any physical way, was thought to be a sign that the person or the person's family had somehow displeased God by sinning in some grand way. To be different from the norm was a mark of shame. But this blind man was not cursed by God. Jesus makes it clear that it was the world in their blindness who cursed this man by leaving him to beg in the dirt. Just because the world curses you because they don't understand or for whatever reason doesn't make it real. Jesus turns all of this around by repurposing spit and dirt in mud into healing properties. And it is a sign that shows how Jesus reconciles our dirt, our weaknesses, our feelings of shame, or the shame that someone puts on you. Reconciles all that, turns it around, gives it back up to God, and we are healed. we are transformed. In making all things new, Jesus actually also mimics creation and renews creation. Remember, in Genesis, God forms humankind out of the dust of the ground, out of the dirt of the ground, and breathes God's Spirit into it, and we are made, we are created. This man is made new and recreated. God does not curse us. We do a pretty good job of doing that to ourselves and also to other people. God actually changes, transforms curses into blessings, and we are to do the same. So it's not the man's blindness that is shameful, but those around him who cannot accept his difference, his disability, or even his new transformation. They can't even take that in and celebrate that. Those who are so obsessed with the how, the why, that they cannot see the abundance of God's grace that was just shown to them. They can't even take that in with any kind of gratitude or understanding. And sometimes we cannot see grace in the world. We can't see past the mud and the spit and the dirt. And it is during these times that we can turn to Psalm 23, the psalm that we heard today. Psalm 23 reminds us that even though we walk through the valleys of the shadow of death, or even though we walk through the darkest valleys when we are at our lowest point, even though we are walking through that low point of the shadow of death, we fear no evil, for God is with us and we are comforted. The psalmist seems to speak from experience in this. The psalmist's narrative of faith, the Lord is our shepherd, and notice how the shepherd does not lead us away from the valleys of darkness or help us crawl up out of the valleys of darkness right away. No, we are to trod through the valleys when they come, trod through the valleys of our deepest fears, but we do so with the knowledge that the shepherd is at our side. Darkness is transformed because it is we who are transformed in our walk with God, and we are not alone. And the shadows hold no power over us. And this is the abundance that God promises, and this is what the signs that Jesus performs lead us to. This is God's grace in action. Now, we may not know the how and the why of things. Sometimes it may just be enough to confess Jesus. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that grace-filled thing happened in my life, but I'm just going to say thank you. I'm going to have gratitude. To believe in Jesus as the Son of Man, in that gratitude, to put our trust in the Nicene Creed that we will say together shortly, even if we don't understand what we are saying. Can we just put our trust in it for a moment? When we say it and say, okay, I don't get it, maybe I don't understand, but I'm gonna ask that the grace of God shine down upon me so that I have understanding on some level. We can pray for that when we are saying the Nicene Creed. Now more than ever, in these times of spit in mud, where it's sometimes hard to witness any signs of direct healing, we need to see our own life stories and the life stories of others. Actually get to know the life stories of others. We need to see these stories through the lenses of grace. Where has God broken into our lives? When were we not aware? Maybe it doesn't match what we thought things should look like, and maybe bells aren't ringing to show us what this grace looks like. But trust that grace is there, eager to break through our temporary blindness. And we also have to find ways to touch the untouchables and turn around the curses. And most importantly, we need to see each other as fellow human beings. Bombs falling from the sky are not going to bless our world. Hate will not bless our world. Divisions based on the strangeness of others, or people that we don't understand, or cultures that we don't understand, or nations that we don't understand. Dividing that, continuing to divide that, will not bless our world. The only thing that will work is love. And this means we have to find ways to repurpose the things that curse others and try to form them into blessings.